All right, I think I am recording again. Sorry about the lighting on this one. I can't get it quite right between the actual office and with the lights on or lights off, so just bear with me. The attention should be mainly on the screen that should be front and center for you guys. Today's video topic is going to be dealing with inflammation, just what we assume it is, and then trying to connect the dots on what it's doing in the background for you guys, especially when it pertains to your nutrition. Now, this topic is going to be a little more involved than I normally do. I'm going to try and make it as palatable as possible. um, Trust me, learning about these things, you have a tendency to fall asleep. I don't blame you. Pause the video at any point. If you need to speed me up, do so. I'm going to give you just some of the basics of inflammatory chemistry, just because I feel that it helps connect the dots in understanding what's happening in our body and why it acts the way it does, and that it's just not this gray area where people can talk vaguely about inflammation. It's like, oh, why should I care? Why shouldn't I care? Well, I just heard that it happens. It's a part of getting older, or I just did too much activity. You get the picture. So I'm going to be kind of walking you through the process of what we know it is, what people typically see with general inflammation. I'm going to then segue into a little bit about how we as Americans are eating on average, then break that down a little bit on why it's leading up to a lot of chronic diseases and a lot of inflammation that's just building up in the background. So, without further ado, I hope you guys enjoy this, hopefully not too long, video presentation. So, to start off with, let's actually go over to this page over at ncbi.com or .gov. It is just about general inflammation. What is inflammation? So signs that everybody typically knows. If you've ever hurt yourself before, hurt yourself pretty good, like rolled an ankle, we all typically know it's probably going to get red, it'll get warm, it'll probably swell, it'll be painful, and loss of function just means, you can't really move it like the ankle, you can't really walk on it or move it around so much. They list the causes as far as germs, bacteria, and injuries. Um, the one that we're going to talk about that most people overlook is chemicals, because we always assume it is from a drug or from some big bad thing that it has to be obvious to cause inflammation. The other thing that a lot of people overlook is we only talk about inflammation when we hit the point of disease. That doesn't mean that inflammation isn't happening throughout our body, both good and bad, on a day-to-day basis, but it's never brought to anybody's attention until you get a disease, whether it's an infection, whether it's like fatty liver disease, whether it's diabetes, which is actually a chronic inflammatory condition as well. We don't we just don't talk about it. I don't know if it's we don't want to or what the deal is, but I digress. So, if that didn't kind of hammer in what inflammation is, I've got a picture of gout because, well, it's actually a fantastic tie into nutrition, because that's, I'm sorry for the sudden shock of seeing a big toe, is what everybody assumes is inflammation. It is big, red, swollen, puffy, angry. It is inflamed. Now, I picked gout because gout is caused by uric acid crystals, which is most associated with, surprise, poor diet. So, why do I keep harping on poor diet? Poor diet, Jake. I've heard it before. Why should I care? Well, because according to the article for dietary guidelines in the past 5 years, 3/4 of us are eating in a pattern of low in veggies, low in fruits, and dairy and oils. Now, the dairy one, that one I don't necessarily agree with. That's kind of location based. I mean, hey, we're in Wisconsin, kind of a thing for us. The other thing here is more than half the population is exceeding total grains. Now, the total protein, there's a caveat to that one, but overall, we are eating an excess of grains and protein-based foods. The irony is that many of us, and particularly younger populations with a little bit more prevalence in the female gender, that you are actually not getting enough of the protein, quality protein intake. It's just, as Americans overall, it's just high protein, high grain, which leads to a cascade of events that we're going to cover here in just a few minutes. So, 3/4 of us are eating poorly. More than half of us exceed the grains and protein overall recommendations. Oh, they even, I should have read the next sentence. They're not meeting the subgroups within those food groups. So, all right, my point is proven, validated. And this one should come to no surprise. This is the DOI statement that almost everybody knows. We exceed our added sugars, fats, and sodiums. So to put that in perspective, late 19th century, turn of the 20th century, average American male was eating roughly 2 to 6 pounds of sugar in a year. I'll give you 5 seconds in YouTube to guess how much on average anybody in the American household is eating now. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It is 156 pounds per year. Now, if we want to break that down into a different perspective, it's either the WHO or the CDC guidelines for dietary intake of added sugars in a day should not exceed 36 grams of sugar for a male, and I believe it's 30 grams of sugar for a female. And if you've looked at any nutrition label at all, I mean, what's one can of insert name brand soda? It almost always exceeds your dietary limit for added sugar. That is just astounding to me, just as a whole, how easy it is for us to consume sugar. Now, it's not entirely our fault. Sugar does have a very highly addictive process in our brain. It releases a lot of the same addictive factors that you have with any drug, which is why some people in the food industry and I'm blanking on the branch of government, are debating labeling sugar as actually an addictive substance, which must be controlled. Um, it does a lot to our brains and a lot to our body chemistry, hence one of the reasons for this talk. Now, they also throw up a relatively confusing chart that's below and above, at or below, and it's all over the place. Long story short, we do not eat enough of what we should be. We eat too much of what we shouldn't be. So what should we be eating? Well, that's a tough conversation. A blanket statement would be to eat way more vegetables, a little bit more fruits. Now, the tendency is we as Americans, once we get the sugar turn, like we cut out sugar, the first thing we replace it with is a whole bunch of fruit, which, don't get me wrong, way better than any of our processed candies. But we have to understand that the way I will be eating is not the way you should be eating. There are general guidelines that the base population should be following. But again, it's a matter of take it into your own hands. I know people who have certain allergies to a lot of vegetables, which means they have to focus on a more keto-based diet. I know, preferences. Some people, whether it's a matter of religion or personal preference, they want to go vegan, or I've had lots of colleagues go and do the carnivore diet. There is a lot of adaptability to the human digestive system and how we eat. It is not a one size fits all. We need to be able to match your eating lifestyle, both from an economic standpoint, because I'll be honest, there's a lot of things that I can't afford to eat on a day-to-day basis, and a preference standpoint, whether it's what you want to eat or what your body can tolerate. And what I mean by that, some of us are lactose intolerant or intolerant to gluten, so that just dictates how we eat. So we need to be much more adaptable and flexible in how we approach diet as a whole, but we must meet certain guidelines. Overall, more vegetables for most people, more fruits for most people, more quality protein for most people, less poor quality protein for the people who consume it, and less, across the board, less processed sugar and processed foods. That is probably the safest statement I can make in nutrition, is cut out the processed food and sugar. It is honestly one of the few topics that everybody in the nutrition world agrees on. Because trust me, you spend 2 hours in Google, everybody's contradicting everybody. And that's okay, that's another video. Stay on track, inflammatory chemistry. Sorry, everybody. So we don't eat very well. Well, what does that do? And here's the part where I'm going to try and keep it pepped up and a little bit more fun, but this is the part that it gets a little bit in the weeds. So in order to talk about what it does, I need to tell you about cytokines. Now, cytokines are proteins in our body that basically help send signals to tell your body what to do. Think of it like your brain's the CEO. In order to send in order to communicate with the rest of the body. Everybody thinks, nerves, which is our mail system. Well, we also have email. We have different ways of sending that mail. This is just one of the ways your body sends mail to and back and forth so that it can communicate properly. So cytokines are proteins. You have good cytokines, which are anti-inflammatory in nature. And again, blanket statement here. And you have bad cytokines or pro-inflammatory cytokines. Now, they're bad in the sense that if they are doing their job when it's after hours, when they shouldn't be doing their job, they're bad because they're doing excess inflammation. You do need an inflammatory response throughout your body, but that's a semantics issue. I digress. For right now, for the purpose of this video, pro-inflammatory cytokines, bad. Anti-inflammatory cytokines, good. We're going to focus on one because it's going to be a good example of what I'm talking about. Interleukin 6 is a cytokine. And again, I'm at ncbi.com. This is what it's going to look like on the chart. They're just going to abbreviate it IL-6. Now, the thing is, they almost always associate it with, infections and tissue injuries. So that's something that I want you guys to connect with, is we classically think of interleukin 6 being produced in response to infection and injury. Why is that important? Well, and I know, scary chart. Right here, we've got IL-6 in multiple sections of this chart. Well, what is this chart, Jake? It's cell and cell chemistry, how your cells respond to dietary intakes, specifically glucose. So I'm just going to focus this again, right around the cursor, IL-6 here, IL-1, and tumor necrosis factor, IL-6, tumor necrosis factor, IL-1. So these are your cytokines now, both inside the cell and outside the cell. I'm going to go through this chart twice, following the different paths, one leading to pain, one leading to something called CRP, which is called C-reactive protein. This protein is what most doctors, when you do a blood test, and if you've ever had the chance to actually look at what's called a blood panel, you will see C-reactive protein is a general marker that doctors use to figure out if your body is in an inflamed state. And on their end, they are trying to figure out, all right, the body's inflamed. That means there's probably an infection or injury, which means we need to do tests X, Y, Z. So to put this in perspective, to tie it into what I said originally, we don't talk about these things until there's actual disease. But this is going on when you have hyperglycemic loads going throughout your body. When do you have hyperglycemic loads? When you overeat sugar, overeat the carbohydrates, especially all at once. Now, the other video that I talked about as a precursor to this video that deals with the pancreas will kind of go over how the pancreas meters out insulin based upon how much glucose is coming in and how it responds accordingly. This video is going to talk about why your body interprets that as injury. So let's go through this. Starting right here, right by the cursor, you've got low micronutrients. So these range from magnesium to vitamin D. Dysbiosis just means that you don't have a lot of the good bacteria in your gut that helps you digest things. Low good cholesterol. And these are just being interpreted into the cell through messengers. These messengers, like I said, are your pro-inflammatory cytokines and tumor necrosis factor. This lipopolysaccharide is just another messenger. This up here tells us that what I told you before, we're eating too much carbs and too much sugars. So you've got your refined carbs, which is the sugars and the processed foods. Refined oils are what we usually cook these in. So we have excess olive oils, excess peanut oils, excess, I'm blanking on the other one, soybean oil, all of those. So here, this is what I told you. We have the hyperglycemic state. We go down, it crosses the cell wall, and we start producing free radicals. Free radicals, think of them as a hyperactive kid in a china shop that you just gave Mountain Dew to and a hammer. They're just running rampant, and they're going to do whatever they can to calm themselves down because they are just hyperactive. The actual chemistry behind them is, if you understand valence electron charts, they are basically the unstable molecule because it's missing one electron, so it's just constantly searching for its friend over and over and just doing damage back and forth. This is why a lot of foods and a lot of branding companies will talk about antioxidants. Those antioxidants are typically the buddy for the free radical, so they buddy up and help calm the free radical down. They basically, they're like the tranquilizer dart to that little kid running around. That makes me look terrible, but you know what? Let's go with it. Mountain Dew, smashing things, antioxidant, tranquilizer dart, kid calms down. Crisis averted, damage halted. So continuing on with the chart. We go down to free radicals. We've got these messengers all talking to the nucleus, which is the brain of the cell, saying, hey, this is what's going on both inside the cell and just outside the cell. What are you going to do about it? He's like, oh, we've got to do things about it. So first, let's go to the pain pathway. So he goes up, he tells the cell, hey, we got to release different things here. We got to tell the rest of our buddy cells what's going on if they haven't gotten the memo. So he sends out messengers to go out to the different parts of the cell, different parts of your brain, different parts of your body, saying, hey, this is what's going on. I was told this from these guys over here. Forward the message on. So the message is taken up by a sensory C neuron. The neuron sends out multiple signals, one to the brain, that basically saying, hey, we got pain going on. One to a different part of the brain that's saying, all right, pain is going to happen. We got to send out substance P, which helps mitigate pain. And it's telling your immune system, hey, we should probably start an inflammatory process to take care of whatever is putting this cell in high alert. So the macrophage here, part of your immune system, goes, all right, I'm on it, boss, and we start the process over. He sends out more of the same messenger saying, hey, I'm on it. There is apparently an inflammatory response here. Where's the fire? And the nucleus, I don't want to say forgets that he said it, but he just responds to the macrophage coming in. So it's just like you had a little bit of a fire going on. Brain says, oh, fire. Macrophage says, oh, fire. Where's the fire? Or fire. Oh, my goodness. And it's just this cycle that goes on and on and on until you're exhausted of everything around here and there's no more signaling messengers going on. So let's go through pathway number 2. So again, poor diet, fire starts, crosses in here. Here's the kid running rampant with the Mountain Dew and the hammer in the china shop. It's the brain of the cell. The cell already sent the signal saying, all right, we should probably get ready for pain and inflammation and all this. What it also does out here is it tells the liver, who is a big wig when it comes to a lot of your different responses throughout the body. I mean, it's one of our larger organs in the body for good reason. And I don't have the time to talk about everything that the liver does. For now, understand that it sends out C-reactive protein, which is like your mass email. Just send all, just everybody needs to know inflammation is happening. So he sends the message out to everybody he can. It's in your blood. So when a doctor takes a blood sample, they basically titer it out and they have numbers that correlate with different markers. The reason this is important is because if it's in one area of your body at this level, that means it's everywhere in your body at that level, because your blood is a good determinant of your overall health. And that's why they like drawing blood. I hate it done. I've had a lot of poor people take my blood, but this is why they do it. So to tie it all together, we don't talk about this until there's actual full-blown disease going on. But it's happening in every part of our body and things that we don't consider. This is why poor diet leads to everything. It's kind of like people are tired of it because like, well, what leads to cancer? Everything leads to cancer. What is nutrition a cause for? It causes everything. We're not wrong in that, but here is why. It's because your body can't understand a lot of what's happening to it outside of the realm of injury. So when we eat a bunch of Kit Kats or a bunch of straight sugar, so if I take, what have I got around here? My coffee. Let's say I put a load of creamer in this, and I mean a load of creamer. I know a lot of people that have a little bit of coffee with their creamer. That hits our gut. Our gut then says, holy crap, this is going to be a lot of sugar, a lot of glucose. Pancreas comes in and says, what's that, boss? A lot of glucose? whole mess of insulin. Insulin and how it responds to your body in this hyperglycemic event, right there, right on my cursor, tells the body, oh, we must be injured. And part of the reason for that is because what I talked about over here is that, remember, 100, 150 years ago, we only on average ate six-ish pounds of sugar a year. We had a very, very steady intake. We didn't have a lot of hyperglycemic events. Our body didn't have to interpret what it was happening, what was it eating as injury, as an injured state. The problem is you have these ingrained messenger systems in your body, and they only have an on and an off switch. They can't dole out their message in any other way other than injury, no injury, pain, no pain, things of that nature. You can't tell it, hey, this isn't something bad coming in my body, even though it is. Hopefully the police sirens don't come through on this video. I don't want to edit that out. But that's just how our biology is. It's on and off switches. It's not, hey, this is only sugar. Hey, this is only, a little bit more fat. Hey, this is only X, Y, and Z. That's not how our body works. It's either pancreas hits us with a load of insulin. That in your blood basically says, ooh, hyperglycemic event. That says, oh, cells, inflammation, flip that switch on. Send the kid in the china shop's just going wild. Tell the brain, we need to send this down for pain. That's why we wind up with a lot of these chronic diseases that unfortunately are a lot of our own doing. That's why a lot of the chronic diseases are running rampant in the 21st century. It's because we had a very poor education from the 20th century, which it's an interesting thing when you take a look at nutrition science in the 20th century, how many times it bounced back and forth. Now, I'm not saying that's wrong. Science is fantastic in the fact that if it is wrong about something, it admits it, and it'll go off of a hypothesis until it's proven wrong. The problem is when you find out that there's stakeholders in the game dealing with how and what you should be eating when they don't have your individual best interest in mind. Only you do. You guys are your own best healthcare practitioner. The rest of us, myself included, should be considered your coaches and more like managers than actual healthcare practitioners. That's all we do. That's mostly what I do. Is we just guide you guys and gals through pain and through education about what you should be doing as your own healthcare practitioner. So to wrap it all up, how should I wrap this up cleanly for you guys? Basically go back to any part of this video that you found confusing. If you are confused about this big scary chart, don't worry. I'm I'm still in practice, and there's so many charts that just look like this where I just blank out. This is a little bit cleaner chart. Some resources that I typically want you guys to, or I want you guys to look at, basically what my biases are as far as nutrition goes, because everybody's got their own stake in the game. I start first with the Deflame diet because it really doesn't have, a guru-ish way of approaching nutrition. It doesn't say, veggies or die. It doesn't say meat or die. It doesn't say anything else. Those are running rampant these days, and that's more your own personal preference. This just basically talks about most of what I talked about, why nutrition should be important to you, a basic guideline of what is pro-inflammatory, what is anti-inflammatory, and typically what happens when you eat these things in different amounts, cook these things in different ways, and it really it ties in together the why behind nutrition, not so much the what, which I find is more important when we're dealing with this topic. After that, it can be pretty much whatever you guys want ad nauseum. Just be warned ahead of time. The information that you will be getting in this field, this area of human study, there's only going to be a few things that are agreed upon across the board. There's a lot of studies that are for mostly veggies and no meat at all. They're going to be along the lines of the China study. I'm forgetting the name of a few others. Basically, most vegan cookbooks, and they'll basically tell you why they are the better anti-inflammatory guys. You've got a lot of people recently talking about the carnivore diet and this new advent of something called anti-nutrients, which are as bad or worse than processed nutrients, because processed nutrients like your potato chips, your Kit Kat bars, they're only adding sugar, they're not adding anything else to your system. So it's pretty wide ranging and it can be daunting. It's kind of why I want to shoot these videos. It's just to clear up a little bit of the fog. There's no way that I can clear it all up. It's just the nature of the beast. The only other thing that I kind of wanted to talk about is if you need blanket statements, here's a few. Cut out processed sugars, processed foods. They are only valuable in the sense that they give you calories. That's it. They offer nothing else. They don't offer micronutrients like your vitamins, like antioxidants. They don't offer magnesium, vitamin C and D. They don't offer niacin, anything that your body needs to operate. So just cut them out. They have no purpose in your life other than flavor. That's it. After that, fill your life with nutrient-dense foods as a whole. It doesn't really matter from what source. On average, if you do that, you'll wind up being less hungry over the course of a day. And I think that might be the topic of the next nutrition video that I decide to do, is going to be talking about what is hunger, why do we crave and binge eat, what to do, and, pro intermittent fasting, anti-intermittent fasting, pros, cons. Yet another controversial topic in the world of nutrition. But I'm starting to ramble on. This video is already long enough. I appreciate you guys for sticking through for such a long topic. Once again, I tried making this as palatable as possible. If you are ever confused about anything, stop on by at my office. I will talk to you if I'm free about any one of these things that you want to learn about. I figure education and knowledge about the basic sciences that should be basic sciences, even though they're not so basic. Semantics again. I'm not holding the key to the gate here. I will tell you flat out what I think, what the science says, and what it doesn't say, which I think is just as important. And be warned, I do say I don't know quite a lot. I know I shouldn't be saying that. I shouldn't be telling you guys that, but I do. All right, rambling, rant, done. Thank you. I am glad I got this to you guys. Have a fantastic rest of your weekend. Let's see if I can find the stop record button. There it is.